Hi, I'm Bob Rice, and today we're going to be covering part 3 of a 3-part installment on level control. Today's topic is focused on how to calculate the tuning values for a level control application. So let's start by looking at our level control process. So we have our tank, and we're trying to control liquid level in the tank by adjusting the flow out of a pump. And we've got disturbances that are coming into the tank, and we're trying to control the liquid level in this process to within some sort of constraints. What we're looking for in the arrest time is the time it takes to recover from a disturbance change into the system. It effectively sets the response time of the controller. Okay? So if we take a look at our process variable and set point for a tank, and we've got a constant set point, and our level's bouncing around, we get hit with a disturbance and it comes back again. We have a controller output that, the level is too high, so the pump is going to increase and it's going to come back out again, something along those lines. The arrest time is the time it takes from when the disturbance hits until the process variable starts to recover or arrest that disturbance. This value right here is known as the arrest time of the process. We also call it, for closed loop systems on level controllers, the closed loop time constant. Okay? Tau C or tau CL, depending on how you want to write it. All right? This is the time it takes to arrest a disturbance. How do we calculate that? Well, remember back to the first part of our 3-part series, we took a look at the flow rates of the disturbance. We looked at the constraints at which we are trying to hold that target set point at, that process variable at that set point, and we calculated how much time it would take for us to hit a constraint when we're under the worst disturbance. Okay? And let's say we ended up with some closed loop time constant of 5 minutes. All right? So we're looking at a arrest time or closed loop time constant of 5 minutes. That's the objective that we're trying to reach. The second part of our 3-part installment on level control is focused on how to calculate the model of the system. The model of the system is the integrator gain and the dead time of the system. These tell you how far and how fast the level changes to speeds, to moving off the balancing point of our output. The dead time is how much delay. And so we were able to calculate those terms. With these terms in the control objective that you're trying to achieve, we can tune level controllers. Okay? So there are these things called PID tuning correlations. They relate this model and this closed loop time constant to the P and I and D settings. Now for most level controllers, we actually don't want any D. So we're going to get rid of the derivative. All right? So how do we calculate the proportional term for a level controller? Well, it's 1 over Kp star. This is an IMC style tuning correlation for level controllers. And it's going to be 2 times tau C plus the dead time divided by tau C plus the dead time, that whole bottom part squared. And so you're left with that. And your I term is 2 times the closed loop time constant plus the dead time. Now, you're looking at these saying, Bob, that's pretty complicated. How can we make this easier, right? And if you have large dead times, these are the equations you want to use, right? But remember how I told you earlier, dead times for level controllers really aren't that big. Oftentimes, if your closed loop time constant, this arrest time here, is larger than the dead time, so if your closed loop time constant is much larger than your dead time, you can assume that the dead time is not that relevant in the process dynamics. If that's true, you can set these to 0 in the tuning correlation, and you can end up with a very simple set of first pass tuning correlations for a level controller. That's essentially tau c over kp star for your p term, and your I term is 2 times the tau c. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Notice your I term. Now, these tuning correlations, by the way, are for the dependent form of the PID equation that uses the reset time. So if you're using a dependent form of the PID equation that's using the reset time, and you're tuning a level controller, the integral, the reset time that you have here, is purely a function of the objective you're trying to achieve. It's 2 times the arrest time, 2 times the closed loop time constant. So if I know I need to get a 5-minute arrest time in the system, my reset time is 2 times that. Done, right? 2 times 5 minutes, 10 minutes. My reset time for my process, in this case, would be 10 minutes. Right? I didn't even have to do a bump test. I didn't even have to generate a model. It's purely based off of the control objective that you're trying to achieve. Now, the P term does include the tank size, right? The dynamics of the system, that Kp star. So you take whatever you generated for your Kp star, whatever you want for your objective function, divide tau c divided by that, that's going to get you your P term. And you're generally going to get, gains that are above 1. Oftentimes for level control, your gains are going to be somewhere between, maybe 2 and 4, maybe 2 and 6, something like that, with an average around 3 or 4, right? You tend to have larger gains, right? And you're going to have very slow reset times, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because they're based off the objective function and how quickly you want the tank to move. Tanks you generally want to move pretty slow, so your reset time is pretty slow. If you're dealing with reset rate, which is going to be in the numerator, or independent forms of the PID equation, where it's not the dependent form, your integral terms tend to be very, very small. So if you're using an independent form in Rockwell, for instance, your Ki could be 0.0001 in some cases, right? So level controllers tend to be a little bit finicky when tuning. They also tend to be the most often requested loop from customers that we help them tune. Most level controllers tend to be cycling and oscillating, oftentimes because their reset time is much too fast. It'll be 1 minute, it'll be a half a minute, when it should be like 10 or 12 minutes. Once we increase that reset time, slow down that integration, we're able to bump up the gain a little bit, get that level to balance out, to smooth out, and because oftentimes these tanks tend to connect pieces of equipment, by tuning your level controllers, balancing them out, get them to be stable, you can start to decouple your processes and really start to improve the efficiency of your plants, right? Level control is a challenging process because it is key and integral to a lot of your applications. In this particular web installment, what we did was we covered the tuning aspect. We understood what the arrest time of the system was. We understood the tuning parameters. We looked at the equations, and we, on the back of an envelope, kind of simplified them down to just how to calculate the P and the I term, knowing just a little bit about the dynamics of the system and a little bit about the objective. We're able to get to our tuning parameters without trial and error. Thank you for joining us in this level control 3-part installment. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about level control.